Everybody, just before we get started with the show here, I want to make a quick shout out to the good folks at Springs Homes for supporting Studio 809 and this podcast. They're in the business of real estate because they love helping clients achieve their goals. Competitive, collaborative, and trustworthy. Meet the real estate pros at springshomes.com.
This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find everything you want to know about me on my website, hikingbob.com. I won't bore you with all the links to social media stuff. Everything's on there. Just go to hikingbob.com. There's links to that, links to my photography website. I have a new domain name, too, bobfalconephotography.com.
Oh, you should.
But, I do have it. I
bought it.
I bought it last week. But you don't have to remember that because if you just go to my website, hikingbob.com, it all links to it. I'm mostly just reserving the name.
Yeah.
And I did do a link, so if people punch that in, it just goes to the existing photography website. Anyway, all that stuff's there. You can sign up for my newsletter and whatever else. Send me emails. I got an email today, somebody suggesting a topic for either my column or a podcast. It's interesting. Okay. I'm looking into it. So feel free to send me any suggestions. And all that kind of good stuff at hikingbob.com. And as you can tell, my co-host Kevin is here today.
Hey, everyone. It's Kevin Wild Westendorf. And you can find me on all the social media except for LinkedIn at Wild Westendorf. And my website, wildwestendorf.com.
Funny you mentioned LinkedIn because I keep getting emails from them. People are looking at your profile on LinkedIn. I'm going, that's interesting. I don't have one.
Yeah. Oh, that's weird.
It's a scam.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I should say it's a scam, although I know they want money from you for anything. But the emails are a scam. In any case, Kevin, we had a great podcast last week.
Yep.
With Melody Edwards from the Modern West podcast. The first episode of the new season came out the same day. And I will tell you that I listened to that podcast, and it was awesome.
Good.
They're going to come out every other Wednesday, so the idea is just subscribe to it so you don't forget to download it. But it was a lot of fun doing the podcast and listening to it. I think this series, and I think it's going to run every other week for 8 or 10 weeks, 8 or 10 episodes, I should say. Was really fun to listen to, and I think it's going to be pretty enlightening. And a lot of that, even though it takes place in Wyoming and ranch country, which we have plenty of down here in Colorado, I think a lot of it's going to affect everybody in the West. So it's a fun podcast to listen to. I don't mind referring people to another podcast because I think it's great. And it was a lot of fun having her on, and we had a very great conversation. I think I did get a message that my knowledge of spaghetti westerns was pretty good.
Nice.
And because I referenced several different movies in there. And in my newsletter this week, for those of you who got a newsletter, there was a reference I made to a quote from, I quoted a line from the classic Western, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. And I found the YouTube clip of that line.
Oh, okay.
Which is like the last line in the movie, or almost the last scene in the movie. So that's where I got it from. So I wasn't just making it up. There it is. But it was a lot of fun doing that. So I appreciate her being on the podcast. And for the listeners, if you know somebody who'd make a good podcast or a good interview or a topic that you want Kevin or I to discuss, feel free to email either one of us, and we'll be happy to look into it and take it under consideration. It's funny the emails I get, Kevin, because, the podcast has a certain amount of reach, so does the column at the Indy. But what's really funny is I get people who want me to evaluate clothing or stuff like that, or evaluate items and things like that. And the funny part is some of them are just like so nothing to do with outdoor recreation. It's like, why would I even consider doing that? I keep getting one from a company that wants me to promote their battery-operated blenders. I have one over there, like the Magic Bullet blender.
Oh, yeah.
Picture something even smaller than that, but battery-operated. Well, these are great for camping. And the only thing I could think of was, who in the heck wants to go to a campground and have some idiot next to him with their blender going,
yeah.
It's like, why don't we just play, why don't you bring a drum set and play drums all night at the campground? They're like, nobody wants to hear that kind of stuff, and if it's in my camper, the trailer I have here, I have electricity. I just plug it in, it's just silly. It's just like, nobody wants to listen to that. It's just amazing the stuff people send me. I just need to email them back. No, stop asking me. No, I'm not going to do it. It's a dumb thing. Anyway, that's kind of stuff. But if you have a suggestion or anything, Kevin and I would love to hear it.
Of course. Yep.
There's always something to talk about, but there's always something new to talk about also. So we're always happy to hear that. Kevin, we don't have a lot on the agenda this week because it's been an interesting week. We're supposed to get some rain.
Yep.
By the time you hear this, we may have actually already had rain. We're recording this a couple of days ahead of time. But coming up this weekend, at the very least, it's going to be a lot cooler than it is right now. I think high temperatures, maybe in the 50s. There's a chance of snow. Now, the people at that other newspaper are going to headline it, snow, 12 inches of snow, 14 inches of snow coming to Colorado. Sure, on top of some 14 or someplace. When I listened to Matt Meister this morning, and again, we're a couple days out, so, and you know my rule, any weather forecast that's more than 72 hours away is suspect at best.
Yeah.
But his thing was snow in the high country, maybe some snow at Palmer Divide, just north of here, the El Paso Douglas County line, and his thing was, I don't know if we'll see any in Colorado Springs, maybe not, and acknowledging that it's way out of it. So the other newspaper is going to be this big headlines about all the snow coming to Colorado.
Because they do it every time.
Oh, yeah. It's either going to be a blizzard or somebody's dead is the only thing they headline it with, which they did again today. But in any case, maybe we will get some weather. At the very least, it looks like we're going to get cooler weather, and we're going to get a little bit of probably some moisture in some form, which we need desperately. It is really dry.
Especially after last week, yeah.
Yeah, all that high temperature and the winds dry things out so bad. So we're going to see those. So here's an interesting thing, Kevin. I've always said the rule of thumb around here in this region, Colorado Springs, the Pikes Peak region, is you don't plant anything outside till Mother's Day.
Yep.
Generally, a rule of thumb is Mother's Day. Mother's Day is when? The second Sunday in May. Now, Mother's Day was last week.
Yeah.
So it kind of threw things off a little bit. But here's the thing, is that Mother's Day was early. Typically, Mother's Day would be around this coming Sunday. Yeah. So it's actually pretty much right on schedule where we might get that last. I have pictures I have taken in Garden of the Gods on Mother's Day in years past with 6 or 8 inches of snow on the ground.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So you're not safe, again, to plant anything outside or to put away the winter clothes until typically Mother's Day, which would normally be this coming week.
Yeah, and there's been several Mother's Days, and I've talked about this before, where I like to take my mom on an adventure, an experience, and there's been a few times where the day will start out wonderful, and then by the time I'm driving her back to her place, it's a snowstorm. I mean, it's a full-blown storm, and it's a little scary.
Yeah. Yeah, so typically mid-May is when you don't want to really, we haven't planned anything outside here yet. It's been warm and everything, but it's like, it's a little too early yet. So we may see one last gasp, but if you look at the forecast, everything after the weekend goes right back up into the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
This will probably be winter's last hurrah for the Pikes Peak region. Some wildflowers have come and already gone. The past flowers that we're used to seeing, at least down here, have come and gone already. And some other ones are popping up. I did a walk around the neighborhood today with the dog, and there were more wildflowers than I saw just a few days ago. So,
oh, cool.
So a little more moisture will definitely help that out. Be aware of the weather. As we always say, we talk about that a lot here. Be aware of the weather.
Yep.
And the higher up you go, the longer winter is, and the more cautious you have to be about the weather. If it's not snow in the winter, it's lightning and things like that in the summer. So just be aware of that kind of stuff. Kevin, there were a couple things that have come up just recently. There's some things coming up, I should say, coming pretty soon. This coming Saturday, speaking of things happening on Saturday, is going to be Colorado Public Lands Day.
Okay.
And that is the third Saturday in every May. And it's a day to celebrate our public lands, vital resources, providing clean water, protecting wildlife habitat, and offering many recreation opportunities. So there's going to be free events all around the state. We're at the beginning of the week. CPW usually doesn't like to put anything out till the end of the week, so there's going to be some events going on there. There is a website that you can go to for that. That is called copubliclandsday.com with all kinds of events. But it's a cool day because we have so many public lands here. We have local public lands, city lands, county lands. We have state public lands of various types, whether it be state parks or state wildlife areas. There are obviously many federal lands where there's national parks, national monuments, Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Reclamation, just about everybody, all that alphabet soup of public lands. We have a little bit of everything there. So that is coming up pretty soon. May 21st, 2022, which will be this coming weekend, is going to be Colorado Public Lands Day. So copubliclandsday.com is the website to go check that out. According to this, there are 22 million acres of national public lands, 350 state wildlife areas, 43 state parks in Colorado. So we have quite a bit of stuff there. There's already some events on here, bird watching, inclusive hikes, headwater trails, cleanup projects, you name it, they're going on, and this list is just going to get longer as we get closer to that during the week. So this will air on Wednesday, and Saturday will be Colorado Public Lands Day. Hopefully we're not facing a blizzard, and everybody can get to go out there and see that kind of stuff. But that is coming up, and I think that will be. It's always good any chance we have to, appreciate the various public lands and how hard people work.
Oh, yeah.
To let us enjoy those things. So it's kind of a fun thing. A big event in Colorado Springs typically every summer, but we haven't had it in the last couple of years, has been the Trails and Open Space Coalition Starlight Spectacular. And this event goes way back, many years. And it has been an event that Trails and Open Space Coalition has, as announced today, that they have opened registration for their Starlight Spectacular. Now, in the past, the Starlight Spectacular, which is a big bike ride, has gone all the way through, all around Colorado Springs. I should say all around, but it's gone from the Garden of the Gods, down Garden of the Gods Road, into downtown, just a little bit into downtown, back up to 30th Street, and then back up to the Garden of the Gods. Or you could have taken another alternate route where you went all the way through the Garden of the Gods. Obviously, as you can imagine, that is a huge...
It sounds huge.
Well, not only is it huge to do, but it's huge to organize and huge to just set up, just organize, I guess.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
The police, they would have to hire a whole bunch of cops to go out there and direct traffic and close roads, and there's fees for this and fees for that, none of which is cheap. But it was a big event. It would draw 1,000 people.
Oh, yeah.
On bikes. I mean, it's a big.
Have you seen the photos of it?
Have you ever had a chance to do it?
No.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So anyway, the reason why we're talking about that is that the Starlight Spectacular this year will be August 13th, 2022, and it will be entirely now within the Garden of the Gods.
Okay.
So it won't leave you won't leave the Garden of the Gods. You go to the, I imagine you're going to start at the Visitor Center, go underneath that underpass, under 30th Street there that they have, and then ride your way through the Garden of the Gods and come back. It will still be a whole lot of fun. I mean, it's a blast. People come up there, they decorate their bikes all different ways and put lights on them, and some people have a whole lot of time on their hands.
And I've seen a lot of folks wear costumes and stuff too.
Yep, they sure do. So that's coming up in August. So you can sign up for it now, and there's actually an early bird, $5 early bird discount if you sign up for it now. It's going to start. There's a walk and run part of this and a bike part of this. So they've done that. So the walk and run will be at 8:30 in the evening, 10:30 for the bike ride. They used to actually start it at midnight too, which I really liked. They moved that back a couple years ago. I was like, I don't know, but again, it was a matter of making that just a little easier. There's an old saying, nothing good happens after midnight. So starting at midnight, people coming out of bars and stuff was probably not a bad idea to do that. Not that anything ever happened, but you don't want to be a part of it. It doesn't say which year this is. They said they did miss 2020 and 2021, as we know, because of, guess what, some stupid pandemic. And but they're starting it back up. They will have teams, food, games, festivities, including a costume contest. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Cool.
I've signed up already. I'll have to take my bike down, see if I can remember how to ride it, see if the tires are flat, see what else is going on there. But that should be a whole lot of fun. So that's coming up for people who are interested in something to do. That will be the thing. A little piece of breaking news. By the time this airs, there won't be breaking news, but when we're recording this on Monday, word just got out. I got an email this afternoon that Karen Palus, the director of the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services Department, has announced that she is leaving that position. She'll be leaving in, I think, effective June 3rd, from what I've heard. And
soon. Okay.
Very soon. I'm sorry to see her go. I've worked with her a lot over the years. Even kind of worked with her even when I was at the county parks with the Parks Advisory Board there. She's been a guest on this podcast many times. Many times. Because it was always, it was always good to hear directly from her what was going on with the Parks Department. She'll have been there 10 years. And I'm sorry to see her go. I know there's some people there who have differing opinions on some of the stuff she's done. I can only tell you that when she's made decisions, she has a Park Advisory Board and a TOPS Working Committee, which I am currently chairing. Those boards and committees are set up, but they're only advisory.
Yeah.
So technically, they can set up and do their job, and then the administration of the Parks Department can do whatever they want. But that's not how she's run things. She's, when we've made recommendations or we've made suggestions or we've given our input on something, she's taken those, and her staff has taken those to heart when it comes time to make a final decision on how to proceed with any kind of topic or decision, or in the case of TOPS, a purchase. And of course, with a TOPS purchase, it almost has to have the TOPS Working Committee's approval or recommendation to make a purchase. I mean, technically, City Council can do what they want, but they would be hard pressed to go ahead with a purchase that we say no to.
Yeah.
You would hope that they would even bring it to them if we said no. So in any case, what I'm getting at is it's been a pleasure working with Karen. I'm sorry to see her go. Britt Haley, who is the head of the TOPS Working, who leads up the TOPS program and some other things at the Parks Department, will be the interim director until a successor is hired. Britt is very good at her job, and she's a wonder to work with, and one of the smartest people I know. And she will obviously be a good person to run the department until whomever. But it's been wonderful having Karen in that position. She's been great to work with. I've always appreciated her ability to sit down and talk to me about any topic. She's always been great to talk to, very open to talk to. And Karen, we're going to miss you here. Kind of a sad day.
Yeah. But, and she's been in the game for a long time too, right? She's
been here for 10 years. And before that, she was the director of Parks and Rec for Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
And before that, she was she basically ran a county government in Florida. So a lot of experience in managing these kind of things. It's been good, and we'll see what happens next.
All right.
So this unfortunately follows on the heels of a number of people who have retired or are retiring from the Parks Department, and not for any other reason except they've been there a very long time. There's one person who's retiring who's been with the city and the county for 40 some odd years. So obviously it's time to retire.
Yeah.
So there's been a number of people retiring. The people who have left have been great, top caliber people in their jobs. And I hope that the city has success in hiring people just as good as the ones who have left and who are leaving. And, moving on to retirement. As somebody who's retired themselves, I can tell you, I know what it's like to finally say, you know what, I'm done. It's time for me to go and enjoy myself. So I completely understand that. We'll see what happens next.
Yep.
Kevin, last week's column in the Indy that I wrote, which I got a lot of positive replies on, which is fun to write, was about the saga of the lost trail, as I called it, and how that trail was found. It was an interesting thing because I looked at some maps, and I looked at like the Cotrex app, for example, and basically it's the 756 trail, which is called the Limbaugh Canyon Trail. It comes off of the 715 trail, which runs from the Monument Preserve down by the Monument Fire Center all the way up to Mount Chautauqua, which is in Palmer Lake. And I even misidentified that trail as the Limbaugh Canyon Trail, mostly because the 756 trail, I never could find it. I went by it several times. I was standing there with maps and GPSs and apps, and I was standing where that trail was supposed to be and could never find it. I made several attempts to really find it last year. Couldn't find it. Called a friend of mine down at the Forest Service, the Pikes Peak Ranger District. The Forest Service said, I don't think this trail exists anymore. And there's two things you need to do. Either rebuild it or take it off the map so people don't get lost or whatever trying to find it.
Oh, yeah.
Long story short, they contacted the Colorado Mountain Club, some people from there. They went. What was interesting was those folks or at least the person they contact there goes, I never heard of that trail. I'm like, well, I found a trail they didn't even know about. They went and looked for it, couldn't find it. They ended up finding it by coming in from the west going east. I was going east to west.
That's right.
And there's reason for that. The western part of it has been used by motorcyclists and stuff. So basically they looked at it and found that the trail was almost impossible to find. Some people from the Colorado Mountain Club have gone up there with chainsaws. They went back there and kind of cleared what you can call a trail, but I will tell you that it's a very difficult trail. It is very narrow. It's on a steep slope, so you're never walking on level ground.
Oh, okay.
It's high above Limbaugh Canyon, which is very narrow, and but it's a beautiful trail. And I'm telling you how bad it is just so people don't go out there and think it's going to be a walk in the park. It is a difficult trail to hike, but the views are astonishing. It is beautiful. Rock formations that are 100 or more feet tall and just beautiful places.
I saw your photos and it looks awesome.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. So if anybody wants to check that out, go back to, if you go to my website, and there's a link to all my columns at the Indy, or if you get my newsletter, or if you go to my website, just look at the newsletter link, and you can find all the newsletters on there that go out. There's a link to it there. All that stuff's there, but this is what I like to do. I like to go find these trails. I've told people before, I look for squiggly lines on a map, and then go try to find them, and then I write about them. This was an example of an epic one that took most of a year for all this to develop. Between the time I, kept trying to find it several times and then reported it to the Forest Service, and they got somebody else on it, then winter hit. So I actually, tried to find it again in the winter with the snow and everything. Every step I took was like treacherous because I couldn't see what was under my feet. Waited until just this past week when I went up there with Cole, and there's no snow on the ground up there, and we were able to find it and really enjoyed it. So this is kind of what I like to do, is look for these things. So the good part about this is now the trail is kind of marked with flagging and stuff like that, especially where it intersects with the Monument Trail, trail number 715. So people who are going up there now will actually be able to find it. But be forewarned, this is not an easy trail. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. The footing is not good. The trail is hard to find. Even with flagging, you can get misdirected on there. You're scrambling over rocks. You're scrambling under rocks. It's a soft, what we call duff in the fire service. It's a soft material that's mostly like decomposing pine needles and things. Yeah. So you step on it and it's like stepping on mush. It just slides away from you. So there's some spots where the trail wants to slide away from you and everything. But it's it's got to be a great addition. I shouldn't say addition. Finding it is going to be great. Apparently in some research that Tom from the Colorado Mountain Club found that there was a book written about 20 years ago, and at that time, the person who wrote that book said they couldn't even find the trail. So this trail has been lost.
It's been lost for a long time.
And there's a theory that this probably hadn't seen any maintenance, at least this end of it, the mile and a half or so from going from east to west, probably hadn't seen any maintenance in more than 40 years. I don't know how to verify that, but I will tell you that as overgrown and pretty much invisible as it's been, it's probably been that long since it's seen anything. And there's no marker there for it, which is the first thing. There was never a marker, so nobody could, trails stay open because people use them.
Yeah.
And they beat they pound the ground in, they'll the vegetation will grow over, it gets killed by the people walking on the trail. Well, since that didn't happen, the trail just, Mother Nature overtakes it. And that's kind of what happened there.
Isn't that how Mount Muskoka came to be? I'm trying to remember, but didn't you find an old trail that went up there from an old map, and then you had to go and find it again?
Well, the old trail had been there, and it wasn't that hard to find. It wasn't marked. It wasn't that hard to find, but it was extremely treacherous. Okay. It basically went up and over this huge rock, and when this huge rock got wet, I mean, we're talking a huge rock. You had to go up and over. When the rock got wet, it was slippery. When the rock got slippery, it was dangerous. And then it went straight up a ridge, which you don't like to do, because then what happens is it becomes eroded.
Yeah.
So it ended up being a ridge that became a ditch, pretty much. And, of course, it's scree. It's this soft Pikes Peak granite. So when you came down it, you were slipping and slide on rocks. So I approached the Parks Department. This is when I was president of the Friends of Cheyenne Canyon, to allow us to rebuild that trail, to make it an official trail. It was kind of official, kind of not. In our research, we found a map from the 50s, the Colorado Springs Parks Department map from the 50s that actually had that trail on it.
Wow.
So that enabled us to go back and say, we're not creating a new trail, which requires a lot of paperwork to do. We're just rerouting the trail that you have already acknowledged exists.
Oh, okay.
And then what we did was we rerouted it. We added 3,000 feet to it, where the current alignment of it goes with the steps and stuff. And that's how that happened. So the trail existed. It had been on some maps, not on others. So we were able to use the knowledge that we had that it had actually been officially acknowledged by the Parks Department at one time, 50 plus years ago. But hey, listen, that's all that counts. We found one map. And that's how we were able to establish that the city had acknowledged it. So it was actually one of their trails. And we should be able to go back there and do it. And they gave us the permission to do it. We also said the other magic word, we were paying for it.
Oh, yeah. That's very, very important.
To be fair, the city provided us with lots of services at no cost to the Friends Group to make that happen. Their contracting services, basically they took care of the contracting for us. They did that at no charge for us. Their park rangers for that park helped us with hauling material up there and a lot of stuff. So I'm not saying that we paid for everything. They didn't do anything. They provided a lot of services for free for us to build this trail in their park. One of their park planners went up there with us and helped route it, figure out the best route to take, which is now the current route. Their contracting services, which I would have had no idea how to contract.
Yeah.
For material, for services. We did a fair amount of mechanized work on that one. We had
That's right.
A company come up there with a tiny little bulldozer and a tiny little backhoe to actually cut that. And they did it in a week. The rough work that would have taken months for us to do by hand. And of course, we went back in there by hand and did the steps and all that other work. Rocky Mountain Field Institute did a lot of that work, and we partnered with them and stuff. And that was a lot of stuff that was done by the city using their resources and knowledge of how to contract and things like that I would have had no idea how to do.
Yeah.
I would have ended up with the Three Stooges doing the project if they left me on my own to that. So,
well, I'm glad you found that trail, because I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but that was the hike you took me on before there was a trail that really sparked that love of the outdoors. And I was kind of like, I was dying. I almost turned back a bunch of times, and because I was just not in shape for it. But it was just so beautiful up there. I just was like, man, I want more of this. So,
and it is Mount Muskoka is the highest point within any city park in Colorado Springs. So before anybody asks, Blodgett Peak, not a city park. Mays Peak,
that's right.
Mays Peak across the way, and some of those other peaks are not in city parks. They are in the forest, and some of those other peaks. But this is the highest one that's actually within a city park in Colorado Springs at 8,060 feet.
Nice.
So, which is another selling point I made to get us to build that. Hey, it's the highest point. How can you not build a trail up here?
Yeah, it's a bragging right.
It's a bragging right. You get to go up here. You're in the highest point in the city park. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, a lot of this comes from following squiggly lines and looking at things and saying it's either not there, or we need to fix this, or we need to do something else, or these things happen. There is a couple of other places in the Pike National Forest that I've found squiggly little lines and gone looking for them and can't find them. So
nice.
I will probably be partnering with them, or at least and I brought them to their attention, but I need to do a little bit more research to make sure that I really am in the right spot.
Oh, yeah.
But there are a couple other ones like that I've gone there, and I don't see a trail where the map says there's supposed to be a trail. So we may do more of this kind of stuff. We may reopen some trails that have been long gone, and in a place where more and more people are hitting the trails and looking for places to go and looking for new places to go.
That's a good point, yeah.
Finding these old trails, because the nice thing about them is they're established trails. You don't have to go through this entire process of building them, just to be able to go to the point where you can actually build them. You don't have to go to the expense of building the new trail. You may have to go to a little bit of expense. Maybe you get some volunteer hours up there, and let's reestablish this trail, find the old alignment, rebuild it, which usually not that hard. A couple of days with chainsaws and some clearing and some tools to reestablish it. So I'm working on that. So it's a lot of fun. And you know me, I like to discover new places.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody, don't take this the wrong way. Anybody can hike in Garden of the Gods. Anybody can hike in Palmer Park. There's nothing new there. They're wonderful places. They're beautiful places to go. Me, I want to go look for something different, something maybe more remote, and something more along those lines. And a lot of people do too. A lot of people that get tired of going to the same place.
Yeah.
So they want to look for someplace new. And a lot of fun there. Kevin, what have you done? You did a hike to Pancake Rocks the other day. How was that?
Yeah, it was great. And then we did a little detour to Horseshoe Falls, completely frozen over still.
Really? Still frozen, huh?
I was shocked about it, but the rest of the hike, I think there was like a 2 by 2 feet patch of snow at one point of the trail in the shade, but besides that, there's no snow or anything. I don't think a lot of people know that the trail is temporarily open again while they're still working with the landowner, because for a day like it was when we hiked it, which was on Saturday, it was perfect. Like the weather was perfect, and we didn't get there till about 9:30 or so. Which usually at that time in the past, like the parking lot is completely packed and cars are parked along the highway. There was barely anyone there, which was nice. I mean, it was nice to have like a very quiet hike.
Well, to fill people in, there's a section of this trail, the Horseshoe Falls Trail, which takes you to Pancake Rocks Trail, that an owner of a piece of property up there threatened to close it because it turned out this little tiny corner of his property was cut through by this trail that the Forest Service had there for many, many years. And put up big signs, and I wrote a couple of columns about it. Other news media wrote about it, did pieces about it. He never actually closed it.
Okay.
He threatened to, never actually did. Forest Service tried working with him on it. But I'm glad you mentioned it because June 18th and 19th, I believe, Colorado Mountain Club and the Friends of the Peak, who are the friends group for the Ring to Peak Trail system, are hosting a 2-day project to go up there and reroute the trail around it. So that tells you how small this incursion is.
Nothing almost.
No, it's just like we just got to blip around it. It turns out it's very easy to blip around it. They're going to have 2 days of work. This way that landowner can do whatever the heck he wants, leave everybody alone, put a fence up, whatever. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be a route around that. So that's going to happen in mid-June to go up there and finally fix this thing, which I'm sure was an accidental incursion. I mean, things happen. But yeah, so you enjoyed it, though. It was a good time up there?
Yeah, it was great. And one of my friends I took, it was her first time up there, and she loved it. And the unfortunate thing is we did get a clear view of the High Park fire that's happening northwest of Cripple Creek. On a Saturday, the weather was really nice, so there's not really any wind. So the smoke was just going straight up instead of flying over the mountains towards the springs like it did last week. So it's nice to not be engulfed in smoke.
Talking about another trail that's been closed, the Catamount Falls Trail over in Green Mountain Falls. There's been a section of that closed, which had to close the entire trail. It's been closed since last summer.
Yeah.
For the same thing. It turns out after they did some surveying work, that trail crosses private property. Landowner didn't want anybody up there. And my understanding was the landowner at the time didn't really care. But the landowner wanted to sell it to somebody. And selling it when you were allowing public access, that doesn't come with an agreement of sometimes it's difficult to do. So that forced the city to close it. Town of Green Mountain Falls tried to work out an agreement, apparently couldn't. So and I had this in my newsletter last week and in my column last week, the Green Mountain Historical Foundation, and I apologize if I'm not getting that right, bought the land. Boom, done. Nice how that public-private, nonprofit partnership kind of thing works.
Yeah.
Nonprofit groups, we'll just buy that piece of land. They bought it, told the city, you can do whatever you want up here, and that trail's open. So that Catamount Falls Trail is now back open, and people can hike up from, the west end or the south end of Green Mountain Falls and go up to Catamount Falls and then go up past there to the Garden of Eden and through the Flume and come out at the north recreation area of Pikes Peak, which is also just reopened. So all these things are coming together pretty well. So it's kind of nice to see some of these places that, were the subject of disputes over land and things like that are getting resolved in one manner or another. It's kind of nice to see that.
And I'm very, very excited about that because that's another trail that is in the top of my list for local trails.
There was another trail in that area, the trail that was called the Horseshoe Trail, that is in that same area. Okay. And that trail was a fun trail to go on, except turns out it was on private property for the most part.
Of course.
That has since been closed. But the Bratton Trail, that's the Mount Dewey and the Bratton Trail that are up there now, that links into the Catamount Falls Trail. You can make some pretty nice loops
Oh, I bet.
Out of those trails up there. So Green Mountain Falls, for a little town, has a really nice trail system. And they had a very good trail program there for a little town.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool system. So that's happened too. So a lot of things are reopening. The trail that I told them I couldn't find, nobody could find,
Yep.
has been is being reopened, and the Horse Thief Falls Trail is going to maintain being open. Catamount Falls Trail has been reopened. It's a lot of fun to see these things happen.
That's awesome.
So, you got any hikes coming up? I think you got something coming up Memorial Day, don't you?
Yeah, I'm actually going to host a group hike up the Catamount Falls Trail because I saw that it was open. I was like, sweet, that's the next group hike. And besides that, my Mount Whitney trip is coming up fast. It's about a month and a half away. And this weekend, I'm going to a wedding in Breckenridge, so I'm going to see if I can check out a few of the trails up there.
Cool.
But I'm going to do it after the wedding, the next day, so I don't show up to the wedding with like sunburn or I break my ankle or
Don't do that. That'd be a bad thing. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Well, Kevin, I don't know if we have anything else to talk about. I think that kind of covers all the topics, unless you have anything last minute.
I think I'm good.
Well, I think it's a nice short podcast this week. And with that, we'll say goodbye to everybody, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
All right, everybody. See you later.
Before you go, did you know you can rate and review our Studio 809 podcasts? That will help us, because our egos really need to have thousands and thousands of listeners. But that helps our wonderful sponsors reach more ears too. And we do love our sponsors. So just go to Studio 809 or any individual 809 podcast in your iTunes or podcast app and click on ratings and reviews. Thanks.